you're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landis. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get eatfluenced. Welcome back to the Eatfluencer Podcast. I'm Maggie Landis, the host here, and you are listening to episode 64. Today we're talking about food habituation, and we'll get into that in just a moment. I want to remind you, we are back now for our season 2. The third episode now of season 2. I plan on having new episodes every Wednesday for at least the next several months. I have a couple dozen episodes lined up for you, and I hope you like it. I love hearing your feedback. If you either email me or send me a direct message, or if you can take even 2 seconds of your time and just click the 5-star rating on your podcast player, that really helps get this message to the right people's ears. I also want to remind you, if you're not already in it, I have a free Facebook group for women that I've had for, let me think about this, probably 6, 7, 8 months now. I don't even remember when we started it, last summer. And it's getting more and more active every week. I'm so thrilled. People are loving it. And you're going to want to be part of these conversations. It is a completely weight-inclusive, non-diet group only for women. So either, look for the link in the show notes here or in my Instagram bio to get your invitation. I realize there's a lot of crummy things on Facebook, and perhaps you're not using Facebook at all, but you can participate in Facebook groups and not get on Facebook feed and scroll all the doom scrolling. So I invite you to check it out if that sounds interesting to you. Like I said, everything is in the show notes for both my website, my email, and the Facebook group. But today, food habituation. This sounds like a nerd term and perhaps unfamiliar to you, but you know what it is. You just don't know that you know what it is. As soon as we start talking today, you are going to go, oh, that's what it is. We're going to put a name to that feeling so that you can understand what's going on and trust the process of eating and just believe that your body knows what to do, because it does. And you all have heard me enough that you know that's like the quintessential underpinning of intuitive eating and this kind of good, healthy relationship with food is that your body knows what to do, despite us, frankly. And, the whole idea of leaving diet culture behind is about rejecting that narrative that somebody else or some program else or some other external force knows how to manage your body and manage your eating better than you. So we want to reestablish autonomy. And what we're going to talk about today in terms of food habituation is an obstacle. I know that it is for a lot of people because they fear eating, quote, crazy or going totally off the rails and not being able to stop binging and overeating and eating only, quote, junk and stuff once they stop following a really prescriptive diet plan. But we can reestablish this trust with your body by understanding this concept of food habituation so that you don't have to be controlled by somebody else's ideas of what you should eat. You also can stop trying to control it yourself. Truthfully, the body doesn't need our control. over how it functions. It just functions. I mean, the default condition of the human body is to work. And you've heard me say this before, but if it didn't work, we would be extinct as a species. So whether you think it's from divine design or good engineering or whatever your sort of belief system is, the human body works without us trying to micromanage it all the time and control every little aspect and every little, moment. And food habituation that we're going to talk about, it, I'm going to get there, I promise, is about reestablishing this trust that your body can do what it needs without you micromanaging it. So like I said, this is a fear that a lot of people, in fact, I just got a message just very recently from somebody who's in the Undiet Your Mind app community, and she had mentioned she has tried this, undiet approach, non-diet approach, and every single time she feels like she's kind of like out of control and eating past comfort, and it just feels like this crazy making space. And so her security is going back to dieting because that's what we know. And so even though we know diets don't work and we don't want to do them, we do it because we think that keeps us from being in a crazy place with no control. So, this anxiety about, I'll just eat everything I see. I'll never walk through the produce section again. I will spend all day driving laps around Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's a real fear. It really is, that if you don't have rules, there'll be like no rules, and it will be the craziest eating environment you can imagine. But it won't, because that's not actually what the body wants or needs. Really, it's not. And at least it's not the sort of steady state we're going to get to. All right. It may feel crazy. It may feel like you haven't seen the produce section in a while. It may feel like you have driven a few laps around Chick-fil-A at first, but you won't do it forever. And how can I say that so confidently? Because food habituation is real. See, we think our knowledge of selecting our food, which we get that knowledge mostly from diet culture influenced sources, we think that our knowledge, our intellect about nutrition is how we pick, quote, good food choices or, quote, healthy food choices. We are conditioned to think our way through feeding ourselves. Diet culture's entire shtick is basically, we know more than you, listen to what we know and just do what we say. And it makes eating this dissociated, totally intellectual exercise. And that's not really how it works. The human body has lots of really nuanced, real-time feedback loops and all sorts of things that allow it to operate, minute to minute, second to second, without intellectually controlling it. But I know why you feel that way. Because diet culture. Because we have all been raised in this way of thinking that there is no other way except for us micromanaging, white-knuckling, controlling, knowing all the things, following the rules, way to eat. And the diet industry, you realize, depends on us thinking like that. Because if we need the next app, the next food tracking diary, the next book that comes out, the next program, the next coach, the next influencer, we need all these things and people and programs and stuff, we will continue to feel incapable of making decisions ourselves. I mean, essentially their marketing is, you can't eat without us telling you how to do it. And that's garbage. It sounds like we've all been swindled, and to some degree we really have, because, and I know that it's even more challenging when people that are trusted sources like health professionals and dietitians and, nutritionists and people like that are telling you the same stuff that diet culture is telling you. And that's a whole other animal to contend with, because there's a lot. I'm going to do episodes about that, but just know that every single one of your bodies is working and is trying to work, I would say, despite us. So, food habituation, what's the deal? Okay, the word habituation means that increased exposure to something actually diminishes the desire for it. Okay, let me say that again. Increased exposure diminishes the desire for something. So in food habituation, we're talking about specific foods and talking about eating. So, said another way, if we give ourselves permission to eat all foods and we don't treat certain ones like they're off limits and certain ones are highly revered and certain ones are rejected and all this sort of stuff, all the foods sort of become equal and lose that crazy supercharged magnetic pull. So, more simply than that, if you eat what you desire to eat and you continue to expose yourself to the things you desire to eat, your desire over time diminishes. So, totally dumbed down here. If you eat ice cream regularly, over time you will actually desire to eat it less and less. It sounds crazy. It sounds like this, there's no way that could be true, but it is. Because that out of control attraction to those foods while you are dieting is because of the deprivation. You aren't allowing yourself to have them. And that's this whole deal about food addiction. You can't see my big air quotes. I did a whole episode 50 is about, is food addiction really a thing or not? Spoiler alert, no, I don't think so. But the studies in rats that made some people believe food addiction is an actual biologic thing, they took these rats and starved them. And then when they offered them sugar, the rats went crazy. Okay, what they didn't really, headline in their study is that the rats who had access to the sugar all the time and didn't have food restricted and weren't starving could have cared less. So, when you restrict something, that dopamine response, that psychological, neurological drive to find it and eat it is extremely great. You know that. That's why when you were on the keto diet, you were like dreaming of macaroni and cheese and, distracted by the smell of bread and because you had so much desire for it since it was totally restricted. But when you eat stuff regularly and it becomes neutral, which is one of the principles of intuitive eating, is neutralizing your belief system around food, it just loses its power. I mean, frankly, to the point it may even completely lose desirability at all. I will tell you what, when I was in my dieting days, I missed chicken fingers. Okay? Stick with me here. I like chicken fingers. There's something about just that the perfect crunch and the right consistency of the chicken, and you get the right dipping sauce. But I didn't ever eat them because they were fattening and they had to be fried and all the diet reasons that you don't eat chicken fingers. And I remember just thinking about them. I would drive by and see, oh, I know that place sells chicken. I know that place sells chicken. I know that. Well, so eventually, when I'm dabbling in this, you know, diet rejecting space a few years back when I was starting to learn this way of eating, I was like, well, I'm going to take my kids to Sonic and we're going to get drinks at Sonic because it's happy hour drinks. And you know what? I'm going to get chicken fingers here. And guess what? They weren't even that good. I realized that the Sonic chicken fingers I had built up in my head to be this wonderful thing that I had not had for years on purpose because I was trying to, quote, be good. And I go and get them, and they're like on the chicken finger rank order system, they would not be very high, to be honest. And I could like take it or leave it now. And now I don't drive by Sonic dreaming of chicken fingers. So at a very minimum, this hypercharged, magnetized, gotta have it feeling just goes away, and you can at least be objective about whether you actually like that or not, like that food or not. And you give yourself permission to eat the stuff you really like, and you don't feel so compulsed to eat stuff you don't like just because you're like desiring anything that's a little bit like it, if that makes sense. Like, I basically exclusively keep Bluebell ice cream in my freezer now because it's just the other brands of ice cream, to me personally, just don't hold a candle to that. And so I want to really enjoy ice cream. But I will tell you, back when I didn't allow myself to have any ice cream whatsoever, you could have offered me any cheap off-brand kitty fudgesicle and I would have taken you up on it in that moment, because anything that even looked, smelled, tasted, felt like ice cream was like awesome. But see, now it's allowed, and I realize like it's easy to walk by that kind of stuff. So you've had the experience of food habituation. All right. So here's the most real example. Even if you diet, and you're still dieting, you know this thing. You've gone on a vacation sometime when you've eaten and eaten and eaten, whether it was a cruise or some fun, beach vacation or whatever. You just eat at restaurants for every meal, and you're ordering appetizers and desserts and trying everybody else's food, and just this, rich food experience. And lots of things are sort of fatty and fried and creamy and saucy and everything good about eating. By, third, fourth, fifth day of your vacation, you seriously want to go home and just eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You want to just have a piece of string cheese, because there is a place where all that stuff doesn't even sound good anymore. And if somebody put a big another meal in front of you like that, you just doesn't sound good, feel good, taste good. Your mouth's not watering. It's just really not desirable. Kind of the novelty, if you can call it that. And it is a novelty when we are limiting our access to it. The novelty just kind of wears off. It's not special. And here's the really cool thing. The body actually knows how to manage this. The body is doing this. This is not you making this decision. The physiology of your body actually changes. And your hormonal response to eating, that sort of dopamine and adrenaline rush after eating something, is partially dependent on whether the food is perceived to be off limits or inaccessible, or if there's some sort of scarcity to it, or whether it's just sort of regular availability. I want to just remind you that this binge eating and overeating and eating past fullness and all that sort of stuff are byproducts of restriction, not the other way around. Although we do restrict in response to having those behaviors, which then leads to more of those behaviors. But, when you start eating foods and break that restrictive overeating cycle, there's no more restriction. There's also no more overeating. The whole thing falls apart. So when you start eating foods and allowing all foods, if some of you have tried this, you're not habituated immediately, because these foods still are sort of special and iconic and highly, highly desirable because they've been off limits for probably a long time. So, yes, you will probably overeat or eat past fullness or eat to discomfort or, choose these previously off limits foods more than other food choices for a little bit. That's normal because we're sort of taking those foods off the pedestal, and it takes just a little bit for us to lay them down nicely. We don't want them crashing down off the pedestal. We're just going to lift them off the pedestal and bring them down and set them down. So until your relationship with those specific food items is no longer emotionally charged, you may feel that magnetized kind of overeating thing. But push through it. Eat the food. All right? This is what we've talked about before, this pendulum swinging or the honeymoon phase of leaving diet culture. The only way to ultimately get to a peaceful place is to go through the transition. You can't put more restriction back on top of this, because then we're right back where we started. So just try. It sounds crazy. It sounds so super crazy. I know that eating French fries will ultimately lead you to eat less French fries over time. Food habituation. That's what this is all about. And it's the body's efforts to regulate itself over time. The body knows what nutrients it needs to continue to function, but it doesn't need it all exactly perfect every single day. The whole concept that, our physiology is broken up into these 24-hour blocks of time, and we have to get all these very specific amounts of each and every nutrient in each 24-hour block of time is not accurate. That is convenient if you are trying to create a dieting app or a weight loss program, or trying to help people make checklists and trackers and food labels, but that's not how the body works. There is nothing magical about 24 hours. So your body will regulate its needs partially through your desires for certain foods over time, not within one day. So just trust that. Like I said at the top of this episode, this really is challenging because it requires self-trust. And diet culture has eroded our self-trust. But it's there. Okay, it's there. Your body works. Your body has been trying to work this entire whole time. You have not damaged yourself or wrecked your brain or, incapacitated your ability to just eat like humans were designed to eat. No matter how long you've been dieting, whether you have been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, it doesn't even matter. The body, thankfully, is resilient and autonomous, and despite us trying to ride, its programming, it works. The default condition is good. And I look forward to continuing to help you with this transition, even if it's just you coming back every week and listening to me talk you through these issues on the podcast. I want you to be able to trust yourselves, enjoy being around food, not feel anxious and chaotic and crazy all the time, and just get these issues out of your way so you can get on with whatever you want to do. Because, micromanaging every bite of food, I'm sure, is not what you want to do with all of the time you have in your life. So there we go. Food habituation. Whatever is off limits, the cure is eating it. So I hope you go out there and eat something you love today. I want to also remind you before we hop off here that I am expanding my services now. I'm so excited about this, to help other health professionals kind of undiet their own practice. And health professionals is a very loose term that I would apply to anybody who perceives themselves to work in the healthcare, health and wellness space, fitness profession, anybody who's dealing with these issues, dealing with clients and patients. I want to help you help them. And sometimes when you're transitioning from a traditional weight-centered model in your profession, you know that this other health at every size aligned way is probably better for your patients and clients, but you're not sure how to get from A to B, particularly when you're supporting your clients through doctor's visits and this information they're getting from their doctors and navigating weight stigma in their healthcare, things that may be a little out of your wheelhouse to sort of coach them through. That's what I do. And I'm really looking forward to what this might look like to help you transition from a weight-centered to a weight-neutral way of interacting with your clients and your audience. So the first step, if you're a health professional, go to my website, maggielandismd.com, and I have a new For Health Pro tab at the top of the website. And there are some free resources there for you to get started. I've also updated the link in my Instagram bio so it will point you in the right direction. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're a health professional of any variety, what obstacles do you find in supporting your clients and patients in a non-diet way? I'd love to hear them. I'd love to continue this conversation. So please connect with me. And until next time, we'll have a new podcast every Wednesday. Thanks for joining me. Thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at MaggieLandisMD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at MaggieLandisMD.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.